Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Humility is the Key to Longevity. Now, I'm going to share a little something that I was speaking with Elder Bishop Menadezak, last night. Little on the carnal side, but Lord's will, it'll all tie together and make sense, and be an edifying lesson. We were speaking about, we were chopping it up and listening to a little music, and we got to speaking about, Nas's album, King's Disease 3, because it's a series of 3 different albums that he's dropped, within the last several years. It was King's Disease 1, King's Disease 2, and King's Disease 3. Now, I know from research and from, word of mouth, hearing of it, that King's Disease is gout. But I wasn't really sure why Nas chose that name for his album. Like I said, bear with me, it's, somewhat carnal, but hopefully it'll have some spiritual edification to it. And I asked Elder Menadezak, and he said, well, yeah, the King's Disease. I said, yeah, gout, And then as we got to speaking, I started meditating, and I was like, well, because he mentioned over excess, which is true. King's Disease is gout because of overindulgence, too much wine, too much meat, too many carbs, King's food, which is very rich. And pretty much if the king doesn't, because that also comes with power, and power has a way of, making someone to become very proud and forget about their humble beginnings. So as I was meditating on the album, those of you brothers that do listen to hip hop, in that album, especially the third one, I haven't heard all the tracks, but in the third one, when you listen to the tracks are more so like old school tracks. They kind of give you that vibe, that sense of taking it back to when it was, when hip hop was wholesome, so to speak, Like I said, bear with me, it's somewhat of on a carnal tip, but it has a spiritual, side to it also. And pretty much when you listen to it, it kind of brings you back to the origins, to that down to earth, gritty, hip hop sound from back in the 80s. It kind of has that feel to it, to me anyway. So as I was meditating on it, I was thinking, well, sometimes when you are in a position of power and you get comfortable, you start to become proud, you start to overindulge, and you lose your sense and your way, and you have to be brought back down to reality. And the best way to do that is to humiliate yourself or humble yourself before the Lord humbles you. And when we look up the word humility, it says a modest or low view of one's own importance, humbleness, right? And I did also is I typed in what is King's Disease. Perhaps the oldest known type of arthritis. Gout or gouty arthritis has a long and colorful history, with some of the earliest descriptions dating back as far as the 5th century BC. Historically, gout has been called the disease of kings due to its association with rich foods and alcohol consumption. Also jump down here is, why is it called the disease of kings? Gout has long been known as the disease of kings because of the lavish diet and alcohol consumption of the wealthy, like King Henry VIII, who suffer from it. Gout is also the king of arthritic diseases because the pain of the acute gout attack is so severe, it often leads to a visit to the emergency department. And pretty much, you could associate gout with pride, because gout is the uric acid that builds up and it inflames you. Pride inflames an individual. Now the scriptures say, I believe that's 1 Corinthians chapter 8, right? We're going to get this real quick, and then I want to hit one more point and then hit some precepts. It says 1 Corinthians 8:1, now as touching things offered unto idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth. So knowledge can lead to what? To pride. And this knowledge is so deep that it and so intense and so pure that it can elevate or make somebody's head super fat, to the point where they get so proud that you can't tell them anything. So they have to be humbled, humiliated. That's why the script, the name of the lesson is humility is the key to longevity. All right, so let's look up this word, puffeth up. The word there is physio or physio. To make natural, to cause a thing to pass into nature, to inflate, blow up, to cause to swell up. And we know that Yahushua said that he that exalted himself shall be abased. And then he also said this. Let's go real quick to Matthew chapter 11. Because if anyone should have been proud and puffed up, shouldn't have been Yahushua. He had the greatest knowledge. He had the greatest understanding. He's the closest to the Most High. So if anybody should have been proud, should have been him, right? He should have been puffed up, but he wasn't. Matthew 11:28, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Right, because this is the true rest. The knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of this truth is the true rest. Is the comfort. It says, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. A yoke is what? Something that you put upon you as a prisoner. Because this truth makes us prisoners. Prisoners of hope. Prisoners of the doctrine. We're pretty much in a chain gang of prisoners along with the rest of the members of the church. And Lord's will, we all make it to the end. So this truth is a yoke. And it keeps us humble, because we have to be. If otherwise, we'll be puffed up like others. It says, and learn of me, for I am what? Meek and lowly in heart. So Yahushua, as great as he is, as great as he was, as great as he is, he still was a very humble man. As austere and as rough as he is and was, he is still a very humble man. See, because people equate humility with suckerism, like they say, you take my kindness for weakness. They assimilate humility with someone being a punk or a sucker or a sissy or soft or square, but that's not the case. Humility comes along with obedience. See? So that we wouldn't step outside of the boundaries of the things that the Lord does not like. It says, and you shall find rest unto your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So one more thing before we move on. I typed in, why did Nas call his album King's Disease? Jones Dan Yee's Gaudier approach. The term King's Disease, I don't know, I got to look this up, see what that means. Yee's Gaudier approach. The term King's Disease is an antiquated reference to gout. And as Nas puts it, you can get it from just doing too much. On the title track, the Queensbridge legend announces his return to grand fashion. And like I said, before I read this, I just meditated on some of the tracks that I heard, and it gives you that feeling of that old New York hip hop, the very gritty, walking the streets of New York type feel, bringing it back to, bringing it back to the essence, back to the ground, that real, humble sound, and that's what I got out of it. So pretty much King's Disease is gout, and it could be pride, like he said, doing too much, and just in general being puffed up by in the case of the truth, being puffed up by learning the knowledge but never being checked. All right. Now, Proverbs 16:18, it says, pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. And that is true. And if the Lord loves an individual, guess what? If they get to a point where they get too proud, the Lord will bring them back down to reality and check them. Do something to them, whatever it is, whether it's losing something, losing many things, losing loved ones, losing money, whatever, or even losing their health, declining health. To do what? To humiliate them, to bring them back to reality. Like it states in, what is that? Proverbs 15, and let's start at 29. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he heareth the prayer of the righteous. The light of the eyes rejoiceth the heart, and a good report maketh the bones fat. The ear that heareth the reproof of life abideth among the wise, right? Because this knowledge is a reproof of life, and it causes those that hear and follow the instructions to remain among the wise. Remember, you had the parable of the virgins, the 10 virgins. 5 of them were wise and 5 of them were foolish. All right. It says, he that refuses instruction despiseth his own soul. Why? Because if you don't follow instruction, you're heading for destruction. It says, but he that heareth reproof getteth understanding. The fear of the Lord is the instruction of wisdom, and before honor is humility. Right. So before you can really be elevated to a certain position, you have to go through the humiliation. Right. Now, what I thought about, in that thought pattern when I was getting ready to do the lesson, that whole thought pattern of the lesson, humility is a key to longevity. One very important example came to mind, which was King Hezekiah. Now, King Hezekiah was a righteous king, but there was a point where he got a disease in his feet. I believe he got a disease in his feet, and he was laid up and he was about to die. The Lord sent Isaiah to him to tell him, get your house in order, you were about to die. And what he did immediately, instead of becoming proud and bitter, he turned to the wall and he humbled himself. He cried and he prayed to the Lord. And he told him, he asked the Lord to remember, his good deeds and so on and so forth. And what happened? The Lord sent Isaiah back to him. He said, tell him, I have heard your cry. I have seen you humble yourself before me. Therefore, I'm going to add 15 years to your life. And at that time, when you get to a certain age, 15 years is a lifetime. When you're young and you're 15, 20, 5, 10 years, 15 years, that's nothing. But when you get to a certain age, 5 years is a long time. 10 years is a long time. 15 years is a long time. And then what he did was he had Isaiah make a plaster out of fig and put the fig on the boil. And then he was healed and lived another 15 years because he humbled himself. So he was in that kingly position, and he turned around and humbled himself before the Lord, and the Lord extended his life for 15 years. So humility is the key to longevity. All right. And that's pretty much the idea of the lesson, and this was the title that came to me prior to, starting the lesson. And one key thing in humility is the Lord breaking an individual down, especially when it comes to health. And that will humble anyone. I don't care how proud somebody is. Once that disease starts to take course in your body and it really starts to dig in its claws, you're going to become humble one way or the other. Remember Antiochus Epiphanes, that goddamn devil. You know, he was proud. I mean, he was on his way to Jerusalem. He said, I'm going to fuck these motherfuckers up. I'm going to tear them up. I'm going to rip them out the frame. I'm going to do this. Oh, they just, I can't wait. Come on. Let's get there. The chariot wheels are probably on fire. You know, the horses probably were running out of their horseshoes, you know, leaving their horseshoes behind on fire. You know, he was talking all kind of shit, whipping them, probably leaving marks on the horses' backs, and the horses were like tired, like damn, you know, and he was like talking all kinds of shit. And then the Lord hit him with that disease. It started getting progressively worse, and even as he was feeling the pain, he was being proud as hell. But it came to a point where that disease humbled his ass. It humbled him so much that he prayed to the Lord that if he took it away from him, he would honor the Most High, he would honor the Jews, he would do all kind of stuff, he would, you know. So he was totally humbled, all right, from that situation. So when we go to 2 Corinthians chapter 12, matter of fact, I was going to start at 5. Let's start at 1. This is Paul's vision. Now, Paul, outside of all of the other apostles and men of the Lord back then, Paul was on a higher level than pretty much all of them, as far as visions were concerned, as far as wisdom and knowledge, as far as the secrets and the mysteries of the scriptures of Yahushua. He was one of the deepest that ever did it, right? And he says, 2 Corinthians 12:1, it is not expedient for me, doubtless, to glory. I will come to visions and revelations of the Lord, because he had great knowledge, great wisdom, great understanding. Many miracles were revealed to him, you know, and this, you know, knowledge and wisdom and understanding can puff you up, can make you act, you know, like you came up with it. You know, that's how deep it is, to the point where you'll have men worshiping you and you're sucking up every moment of it. I'm thinking about an individual right now that somebody said, keep the bishop's name out your mouth. And this knowledge will put you up on that pedestal. And that's a very, very dangerous place to be. Because you're pretty much, what you're doing is you're taking away the shine from Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And the Lord don't like that. He said he's a jealous power. You know? So with all this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and these great mysteries and revelations that the Lord gave to the Apostle Paul, he says, I knew a man in Yahushua about 14 years ago. He's speaking about himself in the third person. Whether in the body I cannot tell, or whether out of the body I cannot tell, the Most High knoweth. Why? Because they stoned Paul and they took him for dead. And they dragged him outside of the city and just threw his body out there like you throw out a bag of garbage. Right? And as they stoned him, pretty much he did die. And he was on his way up. His spirit was on his way up to the Most High's throne. And on the way there, he witnessed many beautiful things that he couldn't speak about. But before he got to the heavens, he was sent back down. It says, such a one caught up to the third heaven, which is the spirit world. And I knew such a man, whether in the body or out of the body, I cannot tell, the Most High knoweth, how that he was caught up into paradise. Right. He was already there. You know, a couple more tears, and he would have been face to face with the Most High, and that would have been it. They would have had to take, you know, his body and bury it. It says, and heard unspeakable words. Right? Yep, like the brother said, Karatazah Ibad, he said Asa did the exact opposite of Hezekiah, right? Because Asa didn't inquire of the Lord. He went straight to the physicians. Right? It says, so how that he was caught up into paradise and heard unspeakable words, which was not lawful for a man to utter. Right? Because the things that he saw and the things that he heard, he couldn't put it into words. It was so deep, and so words couldn't explain. It says, of such an one will I glory, yet of myself will I not glory, but in mine infirmity. So he's saying of this will he glory, of his infirmities, of the sicknesses that were placed upon the Apostle Paul. You know, why? Because of, it's going to go on to say, for though I would desire to glory, yeah, I want to boast and brag. You know, I have this great knowledge. I can boast and brag if I want to, but I desire to, but I shall not be a fool. which shows you that these guys that get puffed up, they're nothing but fools, and they don't even realize it. Let's go to, what is that, 1 Timothy chapter 3 and 6. It says, not a novice, least being lifted up with pride, he fall into the condemnation of the devil. And that's what a lot of individuals do. So if an individual comes into this knowledge and learns it, and he becomes proud, guess what? He's nothing but a novice. He hasn't really been tested. He ain't really gone through anything. There's nothing there that he can show that he went through to merit that position that he's in. Now, when you learn stuff and you go through your afflictions, you go through your trials and tribulations, and you sometimes you fail, sometimes you win. But the thing is, you get the bumps and the bruises of being in the truth. Then you could, you start making a mark, so to speak. Not prior to that. You had individuals that came to this thing, they have no problems. Didn't have a lick of their health was perfect. They never caught hell from their parents, from their woman, from their job. Everything was just perfect. And they became proud, and what happened? They're gone. Because there was nothing there to ever check them. So then, in essence, they really weren't, sons of the Most High. They were bastards. That's why it says, despise not thou the chastening of the Lord, for whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth and rebuketh often, to keep us in check. And the greater the knowledge, the more the puffing up. And if an individual happens to be a man of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, the more the afflictions. Because the afflictions keep you in check. It reminds you, hey, better get it together or else. So it says, not a novice, least being lifted up with pride. Now let's look up this word, lifted up with pride. It's the word taifu, or tufu. Taifu, tufu. And it's similar, not sounds, but it's similar to what we read earlier about knowledge puffeth up. To raise a smoke, to wrap in the midst. Right. So here it is. You're inflated. You're like a balloon. Inflated. And what happens to that balloon when it gets too much air? It pops. And this is what the Lord will do to individuals. That's why if you're a man of the Lord, you will get humiliated. You will be humbled. You will go through shit to keep you in check, so that you don't become so puffed up that you explode. Because they that are exalted shall become abased. As the elder apostle Gabar just put it, Ecclesiasticus 3:18, the greater thou art, the more humble thyself, and thou shalt find favor with the Lord. And that's true, because that goes along with this other precept in James 4:6. But he giveth more grace, wherefore he saith, the Most High resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble. You see? So the Lord gives grace to the humble, but he resists the proud. This is why they don't get, to get to those deep mysteries of the scriptures. Because here it is, you're just a man, you're puffed up. The Apostle Paul already told us not to think of man more than what is written. What does scripture say about man? That man at his best state is altogether vanity. That's at his best state. We're at our worst state. Why is ashes, and dust proud? We didn't give ourselves this knowledge. Hell, if you take a survey of all the brothers in the truth, asking them, was this something that you planned on doing in the world? I could almost guarantee that none of them said, nah, I never planned to be a preacher. I never planned to teach the word. I never planned to be a prophet. This was something that the Lord laid on our laps. This was a dispensation that was given to each and every one of us. And whatever we do have, and whatever capacity it is in, is of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua that gave it to us. It says, submit yourself therefore to the Most High, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Right? Because a part of resisting the devil is, of course, defending the gospel, but also them thoughts, them vain thoughts, them puffed up thoughts. And there's been examples of that. Draw nigh to the Most High, and he will draw nigh to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Be afflicted and mourn and weep. Yeah, because this is the beginning of humility. What did the Lord say? What is that in Joel? Rend your heart and not your garment. Because the Lord said that he accepts the contrite in spirit. He ain't try to deal with the proud. The Most High can be proud. The Most High can brag. Why? Because he is the Most High, Yahweh. It gets no higher. But we can't do that. We can't back that up. We can't, keep our word because we're just but flesh. It says, let your laughter be turned to mourning, right? Because we're mourning. What did Yahweh Shai said? You're mourning now, but your sorrow shall be turned into joy. The world is rejoicing. A man of the Lord right now is not really rejoicing. The only thing we rejoicing is, in the truth, in the brotherhood. Sometimes we might watch a movie or something that might give us some type of joy or whatever the case may be. For the most part, we're suffering. We're in mourning. But that mourning is going to be turned into joy because the world is laughing, but their laughter is going to be turned into mourning, while our mourning is going to be turned into laughter. And if we are wise men, then our minds should be in the house of mourning instead of the house of feasting. It says, and your joy to heaviness, right? And that's why the scriptures say, the set of mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up. The word humble means to be brought down, to not think of yourself too highly. As we read the definition of humility. A modest or low view of one's own importance, humbleness. Yeah, because the Lord don't need any of us. And especially now that the internet is out and the word is out everywhere. Damn near everybody and their mama out there know about being a Hebrew Israelite. So the Lord really don't need us. So for that pride to come in is vain. It's foolish. That's what the scriptures speak about, foolish pride. All right, so that's pretty much it on that. So let's read this again. Not a novice, least being lifted up with pride, he fall into the condemnation of the devil. So going back to the Apostle Paul, 2 Corinthians 12:6, for though I would desire to glory, I shall not be a fool. For I will say the truth, but now I forbear, lest any man should think of me above what? Above that which he seeth me to be. A man. We're men. Just like you're men. We came in a little before you, but at the end of the day, we're all still men. You want to glorify somebody? You want to bow down to somebody? You want to exalt somebody? You want to worship somebody? Worship Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. How about that? And that way you can't go wrong. Because when you worship man, it's a detriment to you and to that man. But some men, they love that. Yes, kiss my ass. Yes. I'm thinking about an individual right now, a megalomaniac right now, that just eats that shit up like candy. Which shows you that the individual has spirits on him, because if not, he would have said, look, man, don't be doing this shit. Don't be putting me up on that pedestal. Are you crazy? Most High is a jealous power. It says, or that he heareth of me, right? It says, at least I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations. See? At least I should what? Be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations. And this man had many great revelations. So what did the Lord do to keep him balanced, to keep him humble? There was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. And when you look up this word thorn, thorn in the flesh. The word thorn is scallops or scallops, right? Which is a pointed piece of wood, a pale, a stake, a sharp stake, a splinter. Here, when we read through here, withered at the front, an example, a point or prickle, figuratively, a bodily annoyance or disability. And that's what gout does. The crystals, the uric acid, it crystallizes. And when it crystallizes, there's little points to it and they prick you. I know because I've had it before. And it pricks you. You walk and you're like, what the fuck? You know, you're thinking that something, you got a needle in your shoe. You take your shoe off, there's nothing there. And you're wondering what the hell's going on. And then you walk again because okay, well, I must have got it out of there. You walking again, you feel that again. That's the pricking. That's that thorn in the flesh. That's that king's disease. Overindulgence, doing too much. You know? And that is the way of the Lord humbling, humbling all of us. Just using that as an example. Let's see what else we got. So Matthew, what is it? No, there was another one. This is good. But this is the one. All right, Matthew 23:12. And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased. Because you're either going to be humbled or you're going to be proud. And if you are proud, guess what? You're going to be humbled eventually. It says, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. Right. Let the Lord exalt us in due time. Another thing, you got guys that want all kinds of rank because they just want to be acknowledged as being an elder. Just wait till the Lord raise you up. Then you be good. But if you put yourself in a position you ain't supposed to be in, guess what? There's going to come another man that belongs in that position and you're going to have to go down to a lower seat. As is stated in the scriptures. That's all we say. Sometimes some of you guys don't know what you're involved in, man. This is not about trying to get a crown as far as, trying to have a title for somebody to call you by a title. This is about your salvation, our salvation. Let me see. This is a good one. 1 Peter 5:5. Likewise, you younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Yea, all of you be subject one to another, and be clothed with humility. For the Most High resisteth the proud, and giveth grace to the humble. How many times does the Lord say that? He deals with the humble in spirit. It says, verse 6, humble yourself therefore under the mighty hand of the Most High, that he may exalt you in due time. See? Because there is a time when the exaltation will take place. Let's look up this word, due time. Kairos. Kairos. The due measure. Opportune or seasonable time. Right. The right time. Because if you put yourself in a position you ain't supposed to be, eventually you're going to be taken down from that position. So just humble yourself. Don't be doing too much. Do what's required of you. Remember, humility is the key to longevity. All right. So, pretty much that's it. I don't have anything else. It's like I said, some thoughts that came to mind, and just wanted to, commit it to, to video. And I'm hoping that it's an edifying lesson to the listeners. So with that, I pray that you brothers and sisters have been edified. To the next time I say, Shalom.